What is up, team? Hey, hope you guys are doing well wherever you are watching this. My name's David, and welcome in to another episode of Quarantine Catch Up. I'm really excited because I've got a great guest today, Miss Kristin Imotichey Eubanks, VP of Marketing and Communications for Altair Global. Kristin, how are you doing today?
Doing well.
Good. I know that you're coming from the Dallas area. Is it like 101 degrees there? What's going on?
You know what? Weirdly, today it is kind of gray and overcast. So I think we're getting a little bit of the remnants of the hurricane weather that was hitting the coast. So today it's actually not blazing hot.
Nice. Okay, so you get a little relief from the heat. I'm calling you from Charlotte. And, I moved from Texas last September, and I thought I escaped the heat, but we're like 20 days in a row of 90 plus here in Charlotte. So not too fun. Yeah, not too fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, let's get right into it, Kristin. I know you and I have talked about this. You've seen a couple of these before. We're going to get right into the Fast Five. They're 5 not so hard-hitting questions that are aimed to get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready for the Fast Five?
I am.
Kristin? Okay.
I'm prepared.
It's going to be tough. Trust me. Not really. Okay. Number one, I've asked this several people just because I think it's kind of an interesting question. It kind of gives me a peek into, your personality. But number one is not necessarily what is your favorite book that you've read, but what would be a book that you would give as a gift to someone, whether you found it inspiring or motivational, whatever that may be.
So absolutely. There is a book by Rachel Hollis, and it's called Girl, Wash Your Face. And it's maybe a little bit on the chick lit side of things, but at the same time, it is a very motivational, inspirational type, self-help book that I think for me, I would definitely give it to like a younger woman who was coming up in her career. And it really focuses on being yourself and not worrying so much about trying to fit into some sort of, prescribed mold of who you think that you should be by a certain time, and really just following your passion. And the Girl Wash Your Face, tagline is really just, get through it, get past it, buck up, and then, move on to your next phase. So, yeah.
Okay. So even for myself, you would recommend me reading that?
I think so. I mean, I
could get a good perspective.
A lot about her adoption struggles. And so there's a lot of really human elements in it that I think anybody could take a lot from.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks, Kristin. Okay. Number two. All right. If you're forced to sing karaoke, what would be your go-to song?
Well, it has been my go-to song. I don't know that we did it well at all.
Okay.
There's 100% somewhere out there a video of my husband and I singing with some coworkers, Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back.
All right. That's a real crowd pleaser. So you got the whole rap down and everything too?
You know what is so funny is that in my head, I have that rap down so tight. I am amazing at it. But being up on that stage, oh my gosh, it was so hard. And that was the thing. We got up, we sing that song in the car all the time. We love that song. And then we get up there to do karaoke, and I think it was a total fail. The blackmail video is out there somewhere. Yeah. I'm just praying it never sees the light of day.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think everyone thinks that they're a better singer in the car than what they really are. But I'm definitely guilty.
Absolutely.
All right, number 3. Okay. You are VP of Marketing and Communications, and I want to dig into that a little bit with you just because I think it's really interesting. I think you've got a unique position within the relocation mobility space, and I always think it's interesting marketing or branding centered around a service organization, rather than a product or something that you can actually hold and use. So for number 3, is there a brand or, an account or, something, a branding that you follow in particular that you like their messaging, their advertising?
Well, I am very lucky in that I manage 2 sides of our marketing, and that really is proposals. So bid management, and then also the marketing side, the true marketing side of things. And when, you know, we get in bids and requests for proposals from, you know, companies all around the world, you know, definitely EMEA is very interesting to see theirs. And as part of our process, we really go in and do a lot of research on the companies just to make sure that, you know, we're aligned well and we can find those synergies with a certain brand. And so what I'm so lucky to be able to do is just, you know, see all of these different companies and how they message their, you know, how they put their message out, and the social channels that they target. And so I don't have a particular brand that I follow, you know, all the time, and I watch exactly what they're doing. But I love to see all different brands and all different kinds of companies. And to your point, you know, we're relocation, so we tend to look at our competitors and, you know, definitely look at what's happening in the industry. But it's also very interesting to me to go and look at different verticals to see, you know, how technology companies are really focused on their marketing, and, you know, how, you know, a healthcare company might differ. And so that's really where I find a lot of inspiration, is really going out to companies that maybe I've never even heard of. Really doing a deep dive on their website and just looking at, you know, again, how they're messaging and what they're doing, and you know, just getting inspiration from that.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that, you know, you kind of try to look at a variety of brands and kind of pick and choose what you think would best fit Altair and the messaging that you're putting out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Altair is definitely, you know, we are a more, a company that's focused on, you know, being very authentic. These are our values, you know, approachable, accountable. And so it's like, there are certain things that I feel like would work really well within the Altair world. But then there are times when I go and I look at something that, you know, it could be completely opposite than what we would actually end up doing or saying, because we definitely try to have a certain voice at Altair. But I do think that looking at different things and looking at ways that people are doing things that are not like what you're doing, that's really where you'll find some growth and some inspiration. Because if you just always do the same thing and you never try to break out of your own box, you know, you'll just get stale. And so I think definitely the inspiration for me would come from looking at all different kinds of companies and not really just focusing on ones that I myself might appreciate or what would resonate with me.
Well said. Okay, moving on. Number 4. Okay, this is going to be the toughest question for you, Kristin. Okay, so I hope you're prepared.
Okay.
All right, this is really
all
tough.
Right.
Okay, you are on a lifeboat. Okay, in the middle of the ocean. It only fits one person. You're the only person that can fit on this lifeboat, but you have one extra life jacket. Okay, you've got one extra, and if anyone knows Kristin, you're a proud Oklahoma alum and big time Sooner football fan. Okay.
Absolutely.
Here comes floating by in the ocean Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Lincoln Riley. Okay. 2 Heisman Trophy winners and the current head coach for the Sooners. You have one life vest. Who do you give that to, Kristin? Who do you?
I mean, you're breaking my heart with this question. I can't imagine having to make this choice. But ultimately, you know, I have to go with Lincoln Riley. I mean, I have to save the future of the Sooners.
That's true. That's true.
I'm so sorry to the Browns and to wherever Kyler plays
Cardinals, yeah.
right now.
Yeah, they're probably not too happy with you, Kristin. But hey, I get it. You got to preserve the future of Oklahoma football. So I like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm sure when Baker and Kyler see this, they'll probably reach out to you.
I really love you guys. Don't hold it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, last one of the Fast 5. Number 5. Okay, we're going to get into this in a little bit and talk about your career, but I think it's pretty unique. Your entire career has been in relocation, and that's really cool. I'm not sure how many people can say that for any industry, for that matter. But your entire career in relocation, Kristin, if you had to start all over again, no limitations, you know, there's no worry about, you know, money or where you're going to live or anything. Just if you could pick a career and do it all over again, what would you do?
Well, so I would just love to do something altruistic. I would love to do something that gives back to people. one huge part of, my life is trying to give back. And I work on the board of a very, very small nonprofit with some friends that actually I know through relocation. And, we started trying to do things really small, outreach to the homeless. And, so my husband and I last weekend, we had put together, he travels a lot. And so we had put together these little hygiene bags and taken them down to a store that really reaches out to the homeless and handed those out. So I think that really speaks to one side of me, really that idea that, if you weren't worried about money and you weren't worried about some big career, just doing something to give back to people. And then as a part of that, I am Native American. I love that you pronounced that name right. And so I'm Chickasaw and Choctaw, and I would love to do something with my tribe. Growing up, I wasn't really involved with my culture that much. And as I've gotten older, I've really thought to myself, I would love to learn more. I would love to speak the language. I would love to, do something to give back to my tribe and hopefully do something that would be giving back to, my Native American people, to help them in some way. So really kind of combining those two things would be my ultimate, would be my dream, just to do something that's making the world a better place and just not having to worry about, doing something that would better myself, but more for other people.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that, Kristin. That's certainly unique to you and your story. So I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, that was the fast five. That was not too bad, right? We made it.
No, that was not bad.
Okay. Well, Kristin, I really wanted to catch up with you just because, I was talking earlier before I hit the record button, and I always enjoy, us crossing paths at, different conferences or when I'm in the Dallas area sometimes. And obviously that's not going to happen anytime soon. It doesn't look like, sadly.
No.
So, yeah, I know. So I wanted just to catch up a little bit with you. Just again, like I was saying at the beginning, I think you've got kind of a unique perspective within the industry. And, I know that ultimately you are part of the sales organization for Altair Global. But I think just separating you out, as the head of marketing, I think it's somewhat unique in relocation. And so anyways, I just kind of wanted to walk through, your career progression and the story of how you got into relocation. Coming out of Oklahoma, and then ultimately, kind of as we walk through your career, what's kept you in the industry? Because I know that you had mentioned, you before we started recording that you went home and stayed home for a little bit with your children, which is awesome. And then, you got the bug to get back into the workforce and ultimately got back into relocation. So, for you to get out and then come back to it, I think is pretty cool. So why don't we start at the beginning? You said you grew up in Oklahoma, you graduate, what's on your mind? You were a marketing major?
Not marketing. I was actually journalism.
Cool. So do you have any, desire to go that route as far as, more in the communication side or PR or?
So whenever I was in college at OU, I interned at a news station in Oklahoma City, News 9. And it was my goal to be on camera, to be doing the 10 o'clock news. And I quickly found out when I worked at the news station that that is not what I wanted to do. So
what was was there like a defining moment? Like what was the realization?
Oh, this is kind of dark, but it's the truth. I went out on a shooting one time. I did a ride along with the videographer, and it was a shooting, and then there was a really big murder trial going on in Oklahoma, and I remember everybody was sitting around in the in the office, and they were passing around the crime scene pictures. And I just was like, oh, this just isn't, it's not really what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
So it was just too, I don't know, it got too real for me. know,
Yeah.
and so I loved the writing piece of it. I loved writing the stories, and you know, I loved working there, but it was just that side of things that I would, you know, I would have to be the one interviewing somebody who might have just, you know, lost someone or something like that. And I was like, you know, that's just not what I want to do. And, you know, they actually were offering me weekend overnights. So I would actually start work at Friday at 7:00
Wow.
p.m. and get off at 7 a.m.
Wow.
And I was like, I just
Yeah,
don't see that for
it's
myself.
not a obviously it's not a super easy industry to break into, right? I mean, and especially, I mean, you really have to work your way up and pay your dues,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, so it can be
Exactly. And that was the thing. I just, you know, I knew I could stick with it and maybe, you know, have some success, but it just wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I was dying to do. And so I just thought, you know, no, I think I'm going to do something different. And so I ended up moving to Dallas because, you know, coming from Norman and coming from a small town in Oklahoma, Dallas was the big city.
Yeah.
So I moved down with some friends of mine from OU, and you know, I was like waiting tables at the time just to make money, just to make rent. But I was looking for a full-time job, you know, hopefully using my degree. And so I was looking for marketing, any sort of communications, that sort of thing. And I'm going to date myself because this was back when you actually had to look at the newspaper.
Right.
So,
Right.
I was circling the ad.
For everyone at home, can you explain what a newspaper is? No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly, it's this printed piece of paper.
Yes, yeah. It used
And
to
we
come
actually,
on your doorstep every day. Yeah.
yeah, we actually had to mail resumes as well. We had to print
Right.
them out on the fancy paper, and
So you find an ad for a job, and just coincidentally, that's for a relocation company.
yes,
Wow.
I remember, you know, I started, and I had no clue what it was. I kept looking for the trucks because, of course, I'm thinking, you know, this is the relocation. This is like a U-Haul kind of place, you
Right.
know. And so finally, I get the hang of it. I'm understanding a little bit more about what we do. And right about that time, the company decided that they were going to disband the marketing department in Dallas and move everybody out to their Walnut Creek office. And so, you know, I was looking for a job again. And then I landed at a community credit union here in Dallas, and was a public relations person for them. And then about a year later, you know, I had still stayed in touch with my boss that had hired me at Worldwide Relocation Management. And she called me up and said, hey, you know, do you want to come work with me? And her name was Londa Payne. She's still in the industry, still very much a mentor to me. And so I said, of course. And so I went to work with her at the Associates, and then stayed through several, you know, transitions with the Associates, City Capital, and then Prudential.
And these were all in marketing roles or communication roles, or okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, just building my skills, and, you know, I definitely started out as like a marketing specialist, and then, you know, was promoted to a manager. And then, so, you know, I was managing teams of people, and it was really exciting at Prudential. I had a team in California, and I had a team in Valhalla, New York, which was a phenomenal team of RFP writers. And so one of them I know is still in the industry today. And so, you know, you were talking about kind of what makes you stay. And it's like, it's the people, because I did, after Prudential, I took a little break. I was a stay-at-home mom to 2 kids for a while. And then I, you know, was looking to maybe start thinking, okay, well, it's time, you know, the kids are going to school. So, you know, what am I going to do with myself? And I kind of always thought that I would go back to work. But, you know, I had no idea, since I had been out for, I guess, you know, 7-8 years at that time. And it just so happened that a friend, Mary Beth Nitz, was working for Gene Strickland as a recruiter. And she called me up and she said, hey, you know, Paragon here in Dallas is looking for a marketing person who has relocation experience. And so, you know, I went to the interview, and I was just thinking to myself, like, oh, I'll just use this as, you know, a little experience builder. I'll get my resume back in shape and get a little experience sitting through an interview. And so, I go and I interview with the owner, and he told me probably halfway through the interview, he's like, well, you've got the job, and, I'll want you to start like next week. And I was just thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't prepared really.
And this was your
back.
This was your first interview?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen every time, Kristin. I just want you to know that. Yeah.
No. And it was super shocking.
You must have killed that interview. Yeah. It must have went really well.
Yeah, it was. It was a good interview. And so I worked at Paragon for about 5 years, and, got back in touch with a lot of relocation, friends and colleagues. And so then, and then I followed another colleague to Altair. She called me up and said, hey, do you think you might want to come to Altair? And so I was like, of course. And so that really is the thing. It's so funny because I've really just followed people through my career. I've, and the people are really kind of, what keeps you in it, because the people in relocation are pretty phenomenal. And we are like, maybe a dysfunctional family, but a big family.
I know it is, it seems cliche to say that, but there is truth to that for sure. I think there's examples of that all throughout the industry where people like yourself leave and then make their way back. And, it really is the relationships and the connections that you have with people.
Absolutely.
Did you always see yourself, you had mentioned that you're kind of in specialist role and then manager, and now, you're a VP. Did you always see yourself in, kind of a managerial position at some point, or did that kind of just happen naturally, or what was the?
I remember telling Londa, my boss at the time at the Associates, I was a specialist at the time, and I said, I want to be a manager. And she was like, and I was young, I had maybe 3 years experience in working. And to her credit, she took a chance, and she promoted me. She made me a manager. And I will say that I think being a manager of people is truly where I excel. I love being a manager of people, and it's just something that I really love doing. And I love staying in touch with the people that I've managed throughout the years. Some have come and gone into, bigger roles and bigger companies and that sort of thing, and broken out of the relocation industry. And some have stayed with me. It's funny because I actually brought 2 people from my team at Paragon that they work for me at Altair. And I think one of the best compliments I've ever gotten in my whole life was when one of my, she's a friend and, is on my team. She wrote on one of my anniversaries, she sent me a message, and she said, to the best boss I've had, I guess I'll just follow you my whole career. And I just thought, like, that's really, for me, that's what it's about. Like, I'm decent at marketing. I think I'm a fairly good writer, but I really try to be a good manager. And that's the thing that's important to me, is the people.
Yeah. And I think that's a great lesson too, Kristin, in there where, at the very beginning, you said you told your manager, say, hey, I want to be a manager someday. And I think that's like, I don't know if sometimes people are apprehensive in that, or, they might seem that it shows, too much, I don't know, kind of like bravado or whatever it is. But I think it doesn't mean that, today you're going to be a good manager. But I think if you voice that, you speak, life into that, and then, okay, let's work towards that. Like, that's my goal. That's what I want to accomplish. And look at you. That's what happened. I think that's a great lesson.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I think the ones who worked for me back in the day would probably say, yeah, she wasn't a great one then. Because I've learned so much, I've learned from the people that I've managed. And so I think it's also a good thing if you're not a people manager, if right. That's not really something that you want to do. I think it's really important this is a term that I use a lot, is like, meet people where they are. It doesn't mean that you can't progress in your career, if you're not a people manager. Because there are some people who just that's not what their skill set is. And you can be an excellent individual contributor.
Right.
You just don't always have to be promoted to a people manager. So I think that's a really important distinction that people need to be okay with. Like, you don't have to manage people to be valued in your career. You can be just as important in an individual contributor role.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, I've got one last kind of thought question for you. I know that we touched
Okay.
on it briefly and in our conversation before, but I always think it's really interesting, from my side, from a household goods provider, we're providing a service, and you touched on it as far as, customer experience. That's a big focus for Altair Global. Can you just talk briefly, what you view as the differences between marketing, a service organization versus, when you talk about marketing for, like a Chick-fil-A or Coca-Cola or, just any big, global brand, Apple out there, it's a hard product, it's food, it's, here are the qualities, here's what you can touch, feel, what do you think are some key differences as far as marketing for a service organization?
I think we did definitely talk about the idea that, our industry and how we market is, we're a niche industry, and our target market is very, in the beginning, it was very small because we were really just targeting HR people. That was it, because HR was completely in charge of, using who they would use to move their people. And then over the years, it's really been interesting to watch the relocation industry, grow and change. And, now we're targeting different types of people. So you definitely are still targeting HR people, but then there's also the procurement aspect. And procurement has a seat at the table in choosing any supplier for a company these days. And so, that in and of itself is a very different sell. One person is focused on the experience of their team members and their employees, and then the other person is really more focused on the value that you're bringing and the bottom line dollar. So really trying to combine those two things into a compelling message really has become very important. And I think especially for Altair Global, we try to differentiate ourselves because we are truly focused on experience management. And so we're also really looking for those companies who focus on that as well, because that's something that's important to us. And so we feel like if it's important to us and important to them, that we would be a really good cultural fit. Mm-hmm. And I think, just marketing, the company in general for service versus product. I mean, it's funny because I did hire somebody that came not from relocation, and, she just came in and she's brought just such a great energy to our team, and she has a lot of great ideas. And, but it was funny because, she would come in, and I hated to be that person. I definitely wanted to listen to all of her ideas, and I didn't want to be the wet blanket, but it's kind of like, yeah, that would work. And it's a great idea, but it's just not how relocation really does things. We have a really long sales cycle. And so, there are just certain things that, might work for a product or something that you could purchase on the website, point of purchase and that sort of thing. But when you're selling a service, you're really selling more intangible things. And especially when it's in such a long sales cycle, I mean, the relationships that are built by our sales team, I mean, those are super important. And so I think there are very tangible differences in what we do as an industry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Super interesting. Well, thanks, Kristin. I really appreciate your insight. And I know you're a little nervous to join me today, so I appreciate you joining me. You did awesome. That was so good.
Thanks you. So this wasn't bad at all.
Yeah, right. Pretty painless. I mean, come on. Well, I hope that, I doesn't look like before the end of the year, but I hope at some point soon we can catch up in person. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For Kristin, I'm David. Thanks.